Welcome to Night Chemistry, your candlelit refuge beneath the stars. Here we mix gentle science with soothing storytelling to guide you into restful sleep. Tonight's journey is a detective mystery tale entitled The Case of the Sapphire Mist. Find a comfortable position, soften your breath, and let your thoughts dissolve like mist in moonlight. Intro: Fog over Skybridge. The morning commuter tram glided along Skybridge, the slender steel artery that spanned Greywater Bay, when its motors coughed and died midway across. Passengers peered through glass for the usual sunrise, only to watch the cabin flood with shimmering blue-violet haze. Cell phone lights cut sapphire trails through the fog. Coughing erupted, then screams, then chilling silence. By the time first responders pried the tram doors, the mist had thinned and drifted seaward on a salt breeze. One passenger lay motionless on a bench. Dr. Viola Cheen, chief scientist of Blue Wave Labs. Her lips were faintly cyan, eyes glassed with tiny crystals the color of deep ocean. Detective-Chemist Arthur Langley stepped aboard minutes later. The stale wind carried a tang of metal, ozone, and bitter almonds. Cyanogen, his mind whispered. He brushed a fingertip across the interior glass. A faint turquoise powder sparkled like frost. Whatever killed Dr. Cheen was engineered, elegant, and mobile. Standing in the stalled tram high above the bay, Langley felt the weight of both gravity and motive. Somewhere in that gleaming blue fog lay a fortune and a murderer. Chapter 1: Azure Residue. Arthur Langley crouched beside Dr. Cheen's body, while forensic techs sealed the tram in plastic sheeting. A portable fan hissed, pulling residual aerosol through activated charcoal filters. Under angled sunlight, the floor tiles gleamed with microscopic blue flecks, copper to chloride hydrate, judging by hue. A young crime scene chemist, Tara Mendez, handed him a sample vial. Pre-screen shows copper, chlorine, and trace nitriles. Definitely not environmental, she said. Langley nodded. Bag, everything within a meter radius. Cyanogen chloride forms when nitriles meet chlorine in humid air. Perfect in sea fog. Footsteps clanged on the tram's roof hatch. A transit technician poked his head down. Detective? You want to see this? Langley climbed the emergency ladder to the roof walkway. Bolted over the ventilation intake was a fresh stainless cover held by torque screws. Odd, given the fleet used standard hex. One screw was missing altogether. Scratch marks radiated from its hole. Maintenance log? Langley asked. No work order for this tram, the tech replied. But someone keyed a routine filter swap into the system last night. Badge ID MG07. Langley's brow furrowed. Miles Grant, Blue Wave CFO, had visited City Hall yesterday. The badge prefix matched corporate guest credentials. Back inside, paramedics zipped Dr. Cheen into a vapor-tight bag. A coroner's aide approached Langley with preliminary vitals, pulmonary edema and chemical burns. Toxicology rush test shows cyanogen chloride. Langley's gaze swept the cabin. Etched on the forward glass, as if a finger had traced through condensation, were three letters: MX, Mist X. Dr. Cheen's secret code name surfaced in his memory. He'd seen it scribbled on Blue Wave patent abstracts. His phone buzzed, an alert from the bridge's environmental sensors. Copper levels spiking in bay mist. The aerosol was migrating, turning wind into a weapon. Langley radioed dispatch. Lock down Skybridge and Blue Wave Labs. And pull badge MG07 off every checkpoint camera between midnight and dawn. Tara returned with a second vial. Look at this, sir. Inside, pale blue crystals twinkled like crushed sapphire. She smiled grimly. Pure CCl2 Twitto. Almost pretty if it weren't lethal. Langley pocketed the cartridge. Beauty and poison, inseparable again. As officers evacuated the tram, he watched gulls circle the disabled carriage, wings slicing through threads of fading blue. Somewhere beyond the rails, a killer counted on the sea breeze to carry away all trace. But chemistry, Langley knew, always left residue, and he now held the first grains of truth Chapter 2, Spectrum in the Mist. The municipal forensics bunker buzzed with fluorescent hum and quiet urgency. Detective Arthur Langley stood behind a blast shield while a Raman spectrometer fired its thin green laser through a pinpoint of the Skybridge residue. On the monitor, jagged peaks rose in real time, an infrared skyline of guilt. Dr. Marta Singh, head chemist, tapped the screen. Big spike at 475 cm superscript 1. Copper chloride stretch. And here, she highlighted a cluster around 260 cm superscript 1, a nitrile band, almost certainly glycine nitrile. Langley exhaled. Copper chloride plus a nitrile. Add moisture and chlorine gas from bridge deicers, and you get cyanogen chloride. He pictured the tram's HVAC fan seeding blue dust through the cabin, crystals blooming into nerve-searing vapor with every passenger's breath. Singh transferred a high-magnification image. The particles resembled tiny aquamarine snowflakes. "Pretty," she murmured. "Death, but photogenic." Langley opened the evidence bag containing the hijacked air filter. Its pleats were packed with felt-like blue pellets stitched by glue. A stamp code on the frame read BW Mist X1. Custom batch, Singh said. Not something you order from an HVAC catalog. Langley's phone chimed. An email forwarded from the coroner. Dr. Cheen's blood contained elevated copper ions and a trace compound matching beta-propiolactone, a sterilant used to clean membrane reactors. Blue Wave signature. He turned to Singh. "I need background on Mist-X. Anything public." Singh's brow furrowed. Mist-X rings a bell. She clicked through patent databases, paused at an unpublished application flagged confidential. Blue Wave Labs. The abstract flashed across the screen. Mist-X electrodialytic membrane stack incorporating copper. 2 complexes in glycine-derived redox shuttle, capable of selective lithium harvest from seawater during desalination. Langley whistled softly. Lithium, white gold of the battery boom. No wonder someone had gambled with cyanogen to keep Mist-X hidden. A knock at the lab door announced Officer Jarrett, breathless. "Detective, we pulled Skybridge security." Badge MG07 entered the tram service conduit at 2:12 a.m. carrying a silver hard case. Exited 6 minutes later, no case. Miles Grant again. Langley's pulse quickened. Singh brought up another data point. "Look at glycine nitrile safety sheet," she said. "Decomposes above 50 degrees Celsius. Evolves hydrogen cyanide of exposed acid. In combination with copper chloride, you get a runaway release of CLCN gas, the perfect on-site generator." Langley checked the weather log. Overnight humidity, 92%. The saboteur had engineered the atmosphere itself into a weapon. He gathered the filter, vials, and patent printout. "Marta, run a kinetics model. Tell me how much aerosol those canisters could produce, and how long until dilution renders it harmless." 10, maybe 12 hours, she estimated. But if more canisters are primed, any coastal tram or ferry could become a chamber. Langley strode toward the exit. "Then we find the rest before the morning commute." In the corridor, he dialed Captain Reynolds. "Issue an advisory. Suspend Blue Wave's Bridgeside pilot plant. Quarantine their warehouses. I'm en route to question Miles Grant. Bring a hazmat team." The elevator doors closed, reflecting Langley's determined stare. The Sapphire mist had been beautiful enough to distract, lethal enough to kill, and portable enough to strike again. But copper crystals, nitrile shavings, and security timestamps were already naming their creator, and Arthur Langley intended to read that formula aloud before another breath of bay air turned to poison. Chapter 3, Membrane Labyrinth. Blue Wave Labs crouched on the bay's rocky peninsula like a glass-walled barnacle. Security gates parted for Detective Arthur Langley, his badge glinting under harsh noon sun. Inside, the lobby smelled of salt and ozone, air pulled straight off the water to showcase the company's sparkling clean desalination tech. Today, that air felt suspiciously pristine. A shaken facilities manager led Langley through hermetic doors into the pilot hall. 30 stainless stacks. Electrodialysis membranes the size of refrigerators should have lined the center aisle. Instead, 2 full rows sat empty, power leads dangling like severed veins. Shipment to our storage barge, the manager offered weakly. CFO Miles Grant authorized removal at dawn. Langley frowned. You moved prototype hardware during a homicide investigation? I only follow badge clearances, sir. He took a note. Grant controlling chain of custody. Then a glint on the concrete floor caught his eye. Powder-fine droplets of the same aquamarine hue scraped from the tram filter. A piece had broken loose while membranes were wheeled out. Mistex was bleeding crumbs. In an adjacent clean room, Langley found a workstation still logged into Dr. Viola Cheen's profile. The monitor displayed a red flag checklist. Gas off-gassing risk. Unresolved. Vent scrubber retrofit. Pending. Launch date. Postponed. Timestamped 3 hours before her death. A security officer arrived with a tablet. We pulled overnight footage like you asked. He cued a clip. 2247. Cheen in lab coat arguing with Miles Grant and a tall woman in a cobalt dress. Dr. Celeste Yarrow, atmospheric chemistry consultant. The video had no audio, but Cheen's urgent gestures toward the membrane stack were unmistakable. Grant jabbed a finger at Yarrow. Then the trio disappeared into an office mark strategy suite. Minutes later, Yarrow exited alone, expression stony, carrying a slim metallic cylinder. Langley froze the frame. The cylinder matched the size of the HVAC canisters. "Send me a still," he said, "and pull entry log for Yarrow after midnight." He moved deeper into the plant. At the test bay, briny water trickled through transparent channels. Where membranes were missing, hoses looped openly, gurgling. A faint fruity metallic odor, glycine nitrile, hung in stagnant pockets. On a workbench, he found Dr. Cheen's field notebook, spine charred on one edge as if scorched by a chemical splash. Inside, her final entry read, Miss Dexley harvest shows 2,000 ppm yield, but cyanogen off-gas spikes 400 times OSHA. Yarrow claims catalytic FOD disperses in open air, unethical. Meeting tomorrow, insists on independent review, or resign. Langley closed the notebook gently. So Cheen had tried to halt deployment. Grant and Yarrow had motive to silence her and fast-track the launch. Membranes, patents, IPO millions. His phone buzzed. Officer Jerry again. Detective, Yarrow's access card pinged City Dock 6 at 5:10. CCTV shows her loading metal cases onto Grant's chartered barge sea cache, now anchored 2 miles offshore. Langley's pulse quickened. Cyanogen generators. Stolen membranes, a floating lab beyond easy jurisdiction. He keyed Captain Reynolds. Request Marine Patrol, hazmat dive team, and an arrest warrant for Miles Grant and Celeste Yarrow. They're preparing offshore production. Wind whipped through an open bay door, carrying a ghost of salt sweet air. Langley imagined Sapphire rolling across open water, invisible until too late. He tightened his trench coat and headed for the docks. The labyrinth of membranes had led to the sea. Now he would follow the blue trail to its hidden heart. Chapter 4, Patent Pressure. The city patent archive squatted behind marble columns, a quiet temple where fortunes were chiseled in legal jargon. Arthur Langley signed a visitor's log and descended into the climate control stacks. Rows of brushed steel cabinets held the electronic dockets. A single clerk, spectacles low on her nose, guided him to a console. "Search term?" she asked. Langley typed Mistex. A sealed provisional patent lit the screen. Hybrid electrodialytic membrane with copper glycine redox shuttle for concurrent desalination and lithium extraction. Inventors Viola Cheen, Miles Grant, Celeste Yarrow. The filing date, 5 days ago, told its own story. They'd rushed paperwork even before field trials. He opened the Annex Financial Impact Statement. Projected annual gross, $7.3 billion in battery-grade lithium. Beneath that, a terse note, IPO acceleration contingent on instant free public demonstration Q3. No wonder Cheen had balked. A single leak of cyanogen chloride during a live demo would turn investors into plaintiffs overnight. Scrolling further, Langley found something stranger. An amendment scrubbing Cheen's inventor status, submitted at 1:02 a.m. on the morning of her death, hours before the tram incident. Only Grant and Yarrow remained listed. He copied the metadata to a thumb drive. The clerk coughed lightly. Detective, there's also a correspondence log. Inside sat an unopened envelope tagged Environmental Commission whistleblower file. It had been lodged 3 days earlier by Dr. V. Cheen, but stamp returned to sender, address incomplete. The package had never left the building. It lay in a pigeonhole, dusty and ignored. Langley slit the seal. Inside, a 40-page dossier labeled Cyanogen Off-Gas Risk Assessment. Photos showed mice exposed to Mistex aerosol, tiny lungs scarred midnight blue. A sticky note in Cheen's looping hand read, "If this reaches you, halt Blue Wave trials immediately." Langley felt a chill. Cheen had tried every channel. Bureaucracy had swallowed her plea. Pocketing the dossier, he called Captain Reynolds. "We have motive escalation." Grant erased Cheen's inventorship, then killed her to keep the timeline intact. Reynolds' voice crackled. Marine Patrol spots the barge Sikash circling the outer channel. "We'll need EPA hazmat aboard. Cargo's marked laboratory equipment." Langley exited into afternoon glare. Across town, sleek billboards still touted Blue Wave's water into wealth campaign. Smiling children sipping desalinated purity. He imagined those same smiles dissolving under a sapphire cloud. His phone buzzed. A text from forensic chemist Tara Mendez. "Model complete. 1 canister equals lethal CLCN plume for 40,000 cubic meters. Barge holds 12 crates. Enough to blanket the entire Bay ferry network." Langley quickened his stride toward the harbor police pier. Grant had converted water's promise into airborne weaponry. Greed had outpaced conscience. But chemistry, Langley knew, obeyed laws stricter than corporate timelines. He intended to apply those laws personally before the patents turned into epitaphs. Chapter 5, Skybridge Simulation. A low roar reverberated through the municipal wind tunnel facility as Arthur Langley secured his respirator. In the test chamber, technicians had mounted a section of tram HVAC ducting. Filters swapped for one of the C's Mistex canisters. Pink safety lights strobed as the airflow ramped to simulate a breezy dawn crossing the bay. Tara Mendez stood at the control console. Flow set to 30 kilometers per hour. "Typical Skybridge headwind," she said, voice tinny behind her own mask. "Ready to pierce the seal on your mark." Langley reviewed the sensors. Cyanogen chloride detector, copper ion flame photometer, humidity probe. "Do it." A robotic arm pierced the canister. Instantly, a sapphire fog billowed into the duct, curling like bioluminescent tidewater. Readout spiked. CLCN concentration 1200 ppm and climbing. Tara called. "Anything over 25 is lethal." Langley watched copper readings soar as ultrafine CCl2 crystals rode the mist. After 90 seconds, translucent residue peppered the chamber walls, identical to the tram etching. Proof enough. He keyed the intercom to Captain Reynolds observing from the gallery. 1 canister floods an entire tram carriage in under 2 minutes. Grant's barge holds at least 72 kilos. Worst case, a moving gas attack on the ferry system. Reynolds nodded grimly. Marine Fleet is assembling 2 patrol boats now. Langley removed his gloves. "Before we board, I need direct evidence tying Grant's warehouse to these canisters. I think it's hidden in the supply chain." Tara brightened. "I may have it." She pulled up a manifest acquired from a rush subpoena. Serial numbers on the HVAC frames match a purchase from Mariner Logistics Depot, leased exclusively by Miles Grant Holdings. Location? Langley asked. "Warehouse row at Dock 11, about a kilometer from the barge's current mooring. CCTV shows pallets moved by unmarked van at 4:15. She tapped another screen. A still image appeared. Celeste Yarrow in reflective vest guiding forklifts, a metal cylinder under her arm. Langley exhaled. That places her at both ends of the chain. He closed the test panel. Fans scrubbed the chamber with ammonia mist, neutralizing lingering cyanogen. The one Sapphire fog dissipated into dull gray. 30 minutes later, Langley and a hazmat squad rolled up to Dock 11. Inside the corrugated warehouse, the air was muggy with chemical tang. Wooden crates bore Blue Wave logos hastily painted over in naval gray. He pried one open. Rows of HVAC filters preceded with blue powder. Officer Jarrett read the packing slip. Seascape environmental sensors, offshore install. False cargo code, detective. On a workbench lay a shipping schedule, highlighted for midnight transfer to Seacash. At its margin, Grant had scrawled, demo run, 5 o'clock ferry loop. Langley's jaw tightened. 5 a.m. was 4 hours away. Suddenly a clatter echoed above, catwalk footfalls. Langley looked up to see Celeste Yarrow sprinting toward a side ladder, clutching a silver detonator box. "Stop! Police!" he shouted. Yarrow hurled a small cylinder downward. It ruptured in midair, releasing a burst of blue dust. Langley yanked his respirator back on, but visibility plunged. Through swirling haze, he saw her bolt out a service door. Langley gave chase, emerging onto a service pier with a barge set silhouetted against harbor lights. Yarrow raced up the gangplank. Grant waited, shouting orders to deckhands rolling membrane crates below. Langley ducked behind a bollard, radioed Captain Reynolds. "Visual on suspects attempting offshore escape. Mistex canisters present. Deploy marine units. Priority intercept." Sirens flared from the waterway. Yarrow froze, spotting approaching patrol lights. Grant cursed and kicked a crate overboard. It split, filters bobbing like poison sponges. Langley rose, badge raised. "Miles Grant. Celeste Yarrow." Step away from the cargo. Hands where I can see them. The standoff had begun. Sapphire mist still drifting from the warehouse behind him, proof against the darkened sky that greed had once again tried to weaponize chemistry, and that once again Arthur Langley would not let it pass. Chapter 6, Bayside Standoff. Moonlight rippled across Greywater Bay as Marine unit skippers throttled back, their patrol lights splashing over the black hull of the barge Seacash. Detective Arthur Langley stood on the prow of patrol, too, hazmat hood billowing in the night wind. Over the radio, Captain Reynolds murmured, "Team aboard starboard. Team B port. You take the bow ladder, Arthur." Langley drew a steadying breath. On Seacash deck, Miles Grant barked orders while Celeste Yarrow knelt beside a stack of membrane crates, fingers dancing across a stainless control box. 3 bright blue indicator LEDs winked alive. Langley loud hailer Grant, "Yarrow, kill those devices and keep your hands where we can see them." Grant, hissing to Yarrow, "Finish the purge cycle now." Twin ribs bumped the barge. Hazmat troopers scrambled up, carbide hooks clanking. Langley climbed the bow rung. Salt spray mingled with the copper tang of Mistex powder that still drifted from a split crate nearby. Yarrow twisted a dial. Compressed air hissed. Cylindrical canisters rolled down a chute toward the barge's exhaust stack, primed to launch aerosol skyward. Langley lunged, tackling her shoulder. The control box skittered across deck plates. Grant swung a steel pin wrench, grazing Langley's respirator visor with a screech. Before Grant could strike again, Officer Jarrett vaulted over a railing, taser snapping. Grant convulsed and collapsed. But the first canister had already rocketed into the exhaust, rupturing with a deep humph. A plume of sapphire mist gusted into the night air, swirling toward the patrol boats. Langley keyed his radio. "Deploy neutralizer." A pre-rigged nozzle on patrol. 2 fired a billowing ammonia fog across the barge. Where the white cloud met the blue, the color dulled to muddy gray. Ammonia complex of copper ions and quenched cyanogen formation. Sensors chimed green, gas levels falling. Yarrow coughed, half crying. "You fool, Miles." We could have been richer than Tesla. Langley cuffed her hands with zip ties. You have left an entire ferry deck dead for share price, he said, voice flat through the respirator. Troopers rolled foam seal over crate stacks, spraying peroxide to oxidize any residual nitrile. Another team dragged Grant, eyes glassy, suit smeared blue, toward containment cage. Reynolds' voice echoed over loudspeaker. C-Cash secure. All canisters accounted for. Langley picked up the fallen control box. Its display read Demo T 03:00. The script scheduled to trigger remaining canisters at dawn. He powered it down, then slipped a memory card from its slot. Evidence of premeditation, time-stamped. Yarrow glared at the ocean. You think open-sourcing Mystex will save the world? Investors will just copy it. Langley met her gaze. Transparency forces safety. Secrecy kills. He gestured to the neutralized blue, haze dissipating under ammonia fog. Chemistry obeys balance sheets only if humans let it. Dawn bled faint silver above the eastern headland as patrol vessels escorted C-Cash toward shore. Sirens receded, leaving only gull cries and a slap of hull against tide. The last wisps of Sapphire miscurled skyward, neutralized into harmless salts, and drifted away. Langley removed his hood, breathing clean salt air. One chapter of Mystex was finished. But sunrise would bring regulators, journalists, and a public eager to know how blue fog nearly turned the bay into a grave. He pocketed the memory card. The story and the science would see daylight. Chapter 7. Clearing the Horizon. Greywater Bay glittered under a pale gold morning as tugboats nudged the impounded barred C-Cash to a guarded dry dock. Reporters clustered on the pier, microphones bristling like coastal reeds. Arthur Langley watched from a balcony of the harbor agency building. Coffee steaming in his hand. Paperwork mountains temporarily out of sight. Below, EPA investigators in white coveralls wheeled sealed drums toward armored vans. Each drum bore a new stencil. Evidence neutralized. Proof that every gram of Mystex powder now sat in cold storage, not a commuter tram. Inside the conference room behind him, Blue Wave's interim board was signing a very different document, a transfer of all Mystex patents to the Open Water Desalination Consortium, contingent on permanent public licensing and an independent safety panel. The ink was still wet when Marina Kessler emerged, cheeks flushed with cautious optimism. Marina, they voted, unanimous, once Grant shares were frozen. Mystex goes open source with mandatory cyanogen scrubbers. Langley, half-smile, Viola Cheen finally gets her peer review. A siren hooped on the bridge in the distance. Tests of the new chemical sensor grid city engineers had installed overnight. 10 laser spectrometers now scan Skybridge air every 30 seconds, feeding data to an open dashboard where citizens could watch copper and chlorine readings hover safely near zero. Langley's phone chimed. Captain Reynolds texted a single line. Grand jury indictments filed. First hearing next week. Attached was a photo of Miles Grant in County Orange, head bowed, the bright blue stain still faint on his collar. Justice in JPEG form. He turned to Marina, handing her a small heat-scarred notebook. Dr. Cheen's final lab journal, now clear for release. Publish it, he said. Let the world see the equations and the warnings. Marina traced the singed cover, nodded. We'll title the paper Sapphire Mist, a cautionary synthesis. Her gaze swept the harbor. Funny how blue can mean calm seas or toxic fog. Chemistry's neutral, Langley replied. Our choices color it. They stepped outside. Sea air tasted of brine and diesel, not almonds. The difference felt monumental. High above, maintenance crews in orange harnesses installed a last sensor pod on a tram support cable. It gleamed sky blue against the steel. A gull wheeled overhead, caught an updraft, and vanished into the clear horizon. Langley followed its arc, thinking of elements: copper for conductivity, chlorine for cleansing, lithium for promise, and cyanogen for peril. All tools, all truths, none forgiving. Marina broke the silence. What will you do next, detective? Some talk of a tribunal consulting role. Maybe, he said, finishing his coffee. But the periodic table is still full of mysteries, and greed keeps writing new reactions. I'll stay busy. They walked the quay toward the ferry landing. Commuters already queued for the midday run, unconcerned, scrolling feeds that now displayed live bridge-safe readings in reassuring green. Life resuming. Chemistry, too. But under watchful eyes, Langley paused at the rail. Sunlight scattered across the water in a lattice of silver and sapphire. No threat, only reflection. He breathed deep, let the salt settle in his lungs, and felt the balance tip ever so slightly toward light. Somewhere behind, paperwork awaited. Somewhere ahead, another element, another equation, another human flaw begging to be neutralized. For now, Greywater Bay lay calm, its mist a harmless morning haze. Langley turned inland, coat catching the breeze, ready, when the next color called, to follow the science wherever it led. Thank you for wandering through the quiet corridors of night chemistry. May the questions of the day dissolve like salt in still water, and may peaceful dreams form their own gentle equations. Until our next nocturnal experiment, sleep well and good night,